y'all. So today I'm going to show you how to line the tote bag. So basically I'm just going to measure my tote bag. So I'm going to measure across the sides and it's right around 15 across. And then I'm also going to measure the height. And so you can see the ridge that forms my bottom there, like the edge of my bottom, so it's actually going to stand out more like this. But I'm going to measure to the middle of the bottom because I'm going to end up folding in the sides, and I'll show you all how to do that to make it kind of more of a squared off bottom. And so that's about 14 and a half, almost 15. So we'll go ahead and say 15. So 15 by 15. I'm going to add an extra inch just because seam allowance and making sure I fold in the top and all that stuff. So I'm going to cut 2 squares that are 16 by 16. And then I'm also going to measure the straps. And so I'm just going to kind of go through and just kind of pull through there and just kind of go around. And let's see, it gets to 18 there, and then we'll do a few more, so it's about 3-ish more inches. So it's about 21 inches. I'm going to cut them a little bit extra long just because the extra will kind of go down in here and it won't really matter. I'd rather have it a little too long than too short. And then these are about 1.5 inches wide, so I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 inches just because I'm going to fold in the sides so that the edges are nice and neat there. So I'm going to do my strips for the straps about 2 by 24. And then if you want to do any pockets on the inside, just think about how tall you want your pockets and then make sure you have seam allowance for the bottom and hemming the top. So I'm going to cut mine about 6 inches tall because I want it to end up being about 5 inches tall. And if you want pockets that are just straight across, you can just cut it the same width as what you're cutting the width of your pieces for your bag. Or like on this tote bag that I made, I kind of did a little fold in the middle of each pocket just so that when I open it up, the pockets kind of stand out a little more. So if you want to do that, you can definitely do that a little bit more. So I ended up sewing, I didn't do the full width for some of my pockets. They kind of went a little bit short here, so they're not quite all the way. So you can do it if you want to do it a little bit shorter, or if you want to do all the way to the side seam, however you want to do that. And so you'll kind of just, if you want to do that extra fold, you may need to add probably an extra inch or two depending on how many pockets that you're putting in there. So you can kind of calculate it that way. So I'm going to cut my fabric and then I'll show y'all how to sew everything together. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to start with my pockets. So I'm just going to take my long strip that I have cut for my pocket and I'm going to fold the top down and then fold it down again just so I can bind in my little edges there so I don't have any raw edges there. And this is just going to be the top part of my little pocket. So I'm just going to fold it in just a little bit, fold it down there, and I'm just going to do this across. And I'm going to do this for both pockets, and then I'm just going to sew straight across this. So I'm just going to sew my little seam here and get it going. So I've gotten that sewn, and I'm going to do the other pocket just exactly the same way, and then I will show you what we're going to do next. Okay, so now we're going to be attaching our pockets to our lining. So I have one side of my lining piece, and I'm going to be doing the kind of pinched in bottom pockets. If you're just going to do the same width or whatever, if you're not going to gather them at the bottom, you can just kind of do this, and if you want to sew it, if you made them the same width on each side, you can just kind of sew it in there and make sure it's attached. But you're going to fold in the bottom to make sure that that's good. But I'm going to gather it a little bit first. So I've got my pins, and so I like using clips a lot, but for something like this, I need to use pins. And so I'm going to kind of just pull it in just a little bit because I know that it's going to be gathered just a little bit there. And so I'm just going to kind of put a pin here just to kind of have a general placement. And I'm going to pull in my side a little bit over here and about the same amount. And I'm just going to put a little pin to place that. I'm going to fold in my sides here, and I'm going to fold that under, and I'm going to pin that into place there because I'm going to be sewing down that side. Place another pin down here. Sorry, so you can kind of see I have it pinned down the side there. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I'm going to fold in my side here, just so I don't have a raw edge. And I'm going to pin down the side to hold that in place. Okay, and so, because it's going to be kind of, I'm going to have a middle thing here. I'm going to make sure that my pucker is kind of even here. And I'm going to just do 2 pockets. So I'm going to go ahead and put some pins down the middle about where I'm going to sew my pocket there. So then that way I'll have 2 pockets, one on each side there. And so you'll kind of just go through, look down here, and you're going to just take it and you're going to pinch it and you're going to flatten it there. But we also need to tuck in our bottom edge. So we're going to tuck in our bottom edge. We're going to do a little bit there. Tuck it in so that we have our little hem there. And we're going to tuck it in over here. And so we're kind of keeping it, we're tucking it in at the middle so that we have then that little gap where we're going to pucker it so that it'll stand out more. So make sure you're folding in about the same amount that you do all the way across so that it's even. Okay, and so we're going to fold our side under there, and then we're going to kind of just do this. So you want to make sure that it's flat across your liner, but then you also have your little pucker there. And so we're going to place pins for that. So I'm just going to place a pin going this way just so that it'll stay a little better. And place a pin going down that pucker there. Make sure I get all of it. Okay, and so you're making sure your bottom is folded in, you have that pucker there, and we're going to do the same on this side. So we're going to kind of fold in our bottom over here, and we've already kind of got the middle taken care of from the other side there, and so we're going to do that. So I just bumped my camera. And so then we have this middle section here. We're going to fold under our little thing there, and we're going to just kind of make our little pleat. So make sure it's tucked under and do that. Sorry, I keep bumping the camera. I'm not very good at recording these things. I've been doing this for a little bit, but I'm still trying to work on it. Okay, we're going to go down that way, and we're going to go down that way. So then we're going to take it to our sewing machine, and we're going to sew all the way down the side and across the bottom. Make sure you keep your little pleats in place. Sew across there. And then we'll sew down the middle where we want to make our pocket. So if you're making multiple pockets, you can do that. If you're just doing one big pocket, you can do it that way. If you're doing, 3 or 4, just make sure you kind of put your needles down there so that you know kind of where you want your pocket placed. And then we're going to go sew that. Okay, so now we're going to sew our pockets on. And I forgot to mention earlier, if you're doing both sides, go ahead and pin both. If you're doing pockets on both sides. If you want to do pockets just on one side of your bag, you can definitely do that. I like lots of pockets, so I'm doing pockets on both sides. So now we're just going to basically go through and we're going to sew just straight down here. And we're going to sew and just take your pins out as you go. I don't know, I've heard of some people like sewing over their pins. I'm terrified that my needle would break. But just kind of go through, go slow when you're going over your little pleat there, because you want to make sure that it catches it well, and you want it to be so that you have that little fold in. That way it just makes the pocket so it stands out a little bit easier, so if you're trying to put stuff in it or whatever. So I'm going to take my pin out and go slow over that. Take out my other pin, make sure that stays in place. And you're just going to keep sewing, and so you're going to sew all the way down, and then when you come back you can go back and sew this, and then I will show you what's next. Okay, so once I have my pockets added on here, then I am going to sew my front and back together. So we're going to so the pocket side is basically the inside of the bag, and that's going to be kind of the right side. So we're going to just put where our pockets, set those 2 sides together, and we're just going to sew 3 sides. So don't sew, so you can kind of see where your pockets are, and above the pockets, that's going to be your top. So don't sew the top. You're going to sew the sides and the bottom, and then I will show you what's next. So we're going to just put those together, sew the sides and the bottom all the way up.